This Monday morning weekend recap and Monday night preview of Pucks Across Borders on Total Apex Sports and Sports Addict Live, brought to you by the one and only First Round Collectibles. What's your favorite sport? Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, maybe wrestling, maybe even boxing. Whatever it is, you can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com. And right now, with our promo code Sports Addict, you get 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. Promo code Sports Addict for 10% off. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off. And with our promo code, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. I actually found over the Easter weekend, I found thousands of cards, sports cards, that I forgot existed at my mom's house, brought them home. I have a meeting with First Round Collectibles this week. I can't wait. That doesn't matter with regards to this ad, but I'm excited about it. Either way, go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code SportsAddict for 10% off sales or regular price items. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah, oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, can't relax. Original, I am not the same as these.
And welcome to Pucks Across Borders on a Monday morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful, restful, profitable Easter long weekend. I guess you guys have the holiday today, eh? I know we had the holiday on Friday. Do you guys have the holiday today or what?
I mean, yeah, I think technically they observe it like the day off and stuff today. We don't, though.
No, we keep grinding. We keep hustling. We took Canadian Thanksgiving, Canadian Easter Friday off because we all know what Toronto is in regard to the universe. But anyway, I digress. Welcome to the show. Good to be with you guys. Good to be back talking hockey. Lots of hockey every night this week. There's a ton of games and can't wait to break it all down. But first, as always, I'm Mark Sauter. And at the top of your screen, right snuggled up next to me, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how you feeling on a Monday, bro? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. We had a nice long holiday weekend, got some chill time, a lot of hockey this weekend, but glad to be back grinding.
Yes, sir. At the bottom of your screen, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. You read his bets on winners and whiners. You see him on Total Apex Sports talking about everything college, professional. He talks about it all. Baseball is now part of the mix. The busiest guy in the business. Andre, how you feeling on the Monday, bro?
Slightly under the weather, but it's fine because the UConn women's team plays today. Very excited to see my ladies in action tonight. Gonna keep me up, but I don't care. Anything for that dub.
Absolutely love it. So let's waste no more time. Let's dive right into it with regards to the weekend that was. Andre, let's start with you, man. What's your takeaway from the NHL this past weekend?
Well, we saw the Minnesota Wild, desperate team, pull a desperate move again, pull the goalie in overtime against the Knights, the team they were directly trailing. This time it backfired. They lost. Marchessault hit the empty net. I don't disagree with the move, though. Given the situation they're in, they need the 2 points. Getting 1 point against Vegas is absolutely nothing to help them. They went for it, didn't work out the way they planned. Probably not making the playoffs. Not getting the extra point doesn't change that, though. So kudos to Minnesota for having the balls to go for it. That's my takeaway. They're doing it again. They're showing desperation. They're fighting to the end. I love that. I truly love that.
I love it too. I guess the only thing that you could hold against them with regards to that is that Vegas is the team that you're chasing. So like to not get at least 1 point, but when you feel like you're probably out anyway, it's like you might as well just throw everything at the wall. I'm right there with you. Also, shout out to Marshall. So 40th goal was that empty netter. 40th goal in the year. So good for him. Been hammering his anytime goal all year long. So profitable for us and good for him. Very much more profitable for him than it is for us. But anyway, we're all winners. We're all winners here. John, let's go to you, man. What's your takeaway in the NHL this past weekend?
My takeaway involves the Nashville Predators. Before we left for Easter break, they were basically the hottest team in the NHL, but I don't know. Maybe they need us on the air or something, because once we got off the air, they got ice cold. I mean, it's only 2 games, so I'm not going to overreact. But we were talking about this last week, I believe, like thinking, did Nashville hit their peak too early? But I don't want to jump to conclusions yet, but I do think it's notable the way they've looked in the last 2 games. We talked about this on the pre-show. They gave up 15 goals combined. 8 of them were to the Coyotes. So come on, what are you doing there? I think my takeaway is Nashville seems to be cooling off very quickly, and yet they're still only 4 points out from third place in their division. So I think I'm going to have my eye on them going forward.
Well, the interesting thing about those 2 losses is they were scoring in both those games. Like they scored 9 goals in 2 games, right? It's not like they just didn't show up. They just couldn't get a save and just kind of fell apart. And I'm actually going to pivot on the takeaway that I was originally thinking. And I'm going to segue from your takeaway, John, is they're 4 points back in third place in the division. Why? Because the Winnipeg Jets have lost 6 in a row. And I don't like to use your term, John, I don't like overreacting to these things. But man, like 6 in a row for the Winnipeg Jets, a team that I feel like if anyone chose them to make it to the playoffs, I feel like you would have chosen them to get into a wild card spot. I don't think you would have had them competing for the division for the entire season. So whether you call it overachieving or whatever, I think this is a really good team. And if their goaltending is on, you know about the playoffs, man. You get a hot goaltender and anything can happen. But they made some really good moves at the deadline. Tyler Toffoli still not totally clicking with them, but I do think that's a matter of time. But man, like losing 3-2 to Ottawa on the weekend, 6 in a row, man, and it's been tough sledding for them, and that is opening the door to the Nashville Predators. Now, we've talked about this many times with regards to both conferences, but I mean, as of right now, if you are the Nashville Predators, you play the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. So if you're the Jets, as of today, like if the playoffs started tonight, Winnipeg is playing Colorado. But if you slip down to that first wildcard spot, you're playing Vancouver. So I feel like you would rather play Vancouver, but either way, the first round is going to be a gauntlet, no matter who you play. So I feel like you kind of would rather that first, like no disrespect to Vancouver. We all know how I feel about Vancouver, but I do feel like as of right now, you would rather play Vancouver than Colorado. If you had to choose between one or the other. But yeah, super interesting stuff. And kind of on that same note, I'm going to go right to a bad beat. Actually, part 2 of my takeaway. I was going to do this later, but I'll just do it now. Part 2. Austin Matthews gets his 60th goal of the year in Buffalo against the Sabres on Saturday night. Finally gets it. Been wanting it for a couple games now. Gets it. And if you guys watch that goal or even watch that whole game, there's a lot of Leaf fans that go to those Buffalo games every year. This game was different, man. I promise you, the stadium was like 90% Leaf jerseys, which if you're a Buffalo Sabre player, let alone a fan, it's like, come on. Like it was more energetic from a Leaf perspective, fan-wise, than a regular Leaf home game. Because that whole lower bowl was all like corporations and season tickets and stuff. And not a lot of Leaf jerseys in the lower bowl usually for those games. And that game was just all Leaf fans, man. It was a home game. Austin Matthews nets his 60th. Awesome to see. Second time in his career that he has done this. And just so thankful on this Easter weekend to have him on my team. Now, last thing I was talking about with the Jets losing to Ottawa, this goes into my bad beats. And boys, I apologize. I might take everyone's bad beats in one shot here, but I got to get this off my chest. So Saturday, all right, the 30th of March, you had the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are pretty much out of it, but fighting for their playoff lives. They're playing the Blue Jackets. They're up 3-1. They lose 4-3 against Columbus. Their playoff hopes were dashed last year against Chicago. So a bit of a theme coming here year after year. Next, you had Philadelphia, who is now down into a second wild card spot. Washington reclaims that, or not even reclaims, they just claim third place in the Met. Philadelphia is playing Chicago, a perfect bounce back game. They lose to Chicago 5-1. Then you have the Jets, who lost 5 in a row, still trying to win that division. They're playing Ottawa. They lose 3-2. Then you have the Blues, who are also fighting for that last wild card spot. They're at home. They're playing San Jose. Perfect opportunity. The Golden Knights and the Wild are playing against each other. Exactly what you want. And you lose 4-0 to the Sharks at home. Why is this a bad beat? Well, first of all teams that are either in the playoffs or have playoff aspirations, they all lose to awful teams. And I bet on all those games, and they all lost. So that's where my bad beat comes in. Playoff teams losing to awful teams, and I bet on them all. So that is just my super long bad beat, all wrapped into one. Andre, what about you, man? What's your bad beat on the weekend?
How are you the Pittsburgh Penguins and you blow a 3-1 lead to the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Awful.
I don't think I need to say more. Just how do you do that? The Jackets have blown more leads than any other NHL team this season. Yep. In Pittsburgh, you let them do what everyone does to them. Just think about that. That's all I got.
Yeah. It's just so frustrating. And it's one of those bets where if you bet on the Penguins, either the money line or -1.5 or whatever, you see they're up 3-1 and you just kind of log that away. That's a cash check. No big deal. And then you look back later, you're like, what in the world happened here? John, what about you, man? You got any bad beats on the weekend?
Not from the weekend, but from our last show on Thursday, which feels like a lifetime ago. But this still stung a bit. Wild playing the Sharks. I basically ripped the Sharks a new one when I did the segment, calling them the worst team in the league. And they are, and they didn't play great against the Wild that night. But what's annoying about that game is that I remember picking the Wild at -2.5. And the Wild end up winning the game by exactly 2 goals. And the funny thing is, the Wild had a late surge in the third period too to try to make that interesting, but they just couldn't come up with that one last goal to win the bet. So I guess that's the closest thing to a bad beat I have.
Another thing that just kind of entered my mind that I just want to get off my chest super quickly here. The Ottawa Senators been driving me crazy all year long. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 5 in a row, and it's the end of the year. They're doing it again. I thought they'd do it sooner, but they're winning a bunch of games, and it doesn't matter. And I know this is irrelevant to where we're going in this conversation, but I just noticed it now, and it's driving me crazy. All right, let's move on to 8 games in the NHL tonight. First, quick recap of what's been going on. The Washington Capitals jump up to third place in the Met with 82 points. Philadelphia is now in that second wild card spot with 82 points. Detroit, 2 points back with a game in hand. The Islanders, 5 points back with 2 games in hand. And the Devils are 6 points back with a game in hand. In the West, Nashville Predators 4 points back of the Jets for third in the Central, but they are in the first wild card. The Kings and the Knights flip-flop. Knights go up to third place in the Pacific with 90 points, and the Kings with 87 are in that second wild card spot. The Blues 5 points back of the Kings with 82 points. Big must-win game for them tonight. And Nashville, pretty much all hopes are gone with that Vegas loss that Andre brought up earlier. Wild with 79 points, 8 points back of the Kings for that last wild card spot. Let's move on to the games tonight. The Colorado Avalanche are in Columbus. Avalanche minus 355 favorites at home. Or on the road, rather. Blue Jackets plus 280 at home. The over is 6.5 at minus 142. The under is plus 120, minus 1.5 for the Avalanche, minus 142, plus 1.5 for the Blue Jackets, plus 120. Andre, let's start with you, man. What do you see in this game tonight, if anything?
I feel like this is a trap game, because you feel like you just have to take Colorado minus 1.5. No, and it makes sense. They're clearly the superior team. It's not even close. I just said Columbus has blown the most leads in the NHL this season. If you want to bet an Avalanche come from behind win, the issue being that Colorado hasn't been super sharp lately. Yeah, they had that game against Nashville, that 7-4 win that kind of resembles the team that we know, the team that we expect to contend for the Cup. But they were down 3-1 early in that one, 4-2 a few minutes into the second. It wasn't squeaky clean. The game before that, they only scored 2 goals and then in a shootout loss. Game before that, they only scored 1 goal. All 3 of those were at home. Game before that was a 5-4 win against the Penguins in OT. They were down to 4 goals in that one. They're not playing great, and now they're on the road where I understand they're a great team. They can win anywhere, but they're not as sharp. I think I might take Columbus plus 1.5 here. And I don't feel good about it, but I don't feel good about Colorado winning by multiple goals at minus 142. I definitely don't feel good about them winning by 3+ goals. So that's why I kind of think it's a trap here. I would lean towards the over, if anything, when talking about this game, simply because of the fact that Columbus, awful goaltending, offense randomly pops off. And we know Colorado's offense, we know what they do. Doesn't really need to be said. But I just can't see this being a runaway Avalanche victory based on the way they closed that homestand. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. The only thing that's keeping me away from it, and there's no doubt plus 1.5 terrific value, and it's really hard to find Colorado value with Colorado at this spot. The only thing that kind of scares me off from that is that the goaltending for Colorado has really come around over the last little bit, and it's something that has concerned us a lot this year is their goaltending. But it's really come around over the last 15 games. They've only allowed 4+ goals twice. And in the last 15 games, they've scored 5+ goals 8 times and 4+ goals 10 times. So that's the one thing that does worry me about this spot as far as the +1.5 goes is their goaltending has really stepped up. You are right though, like the Blue Jackets just score randomly. Like they'll just go off for 4 or 5 goals out of nowhere. But to follow the same trend that I was saying for Colorado, in the last 7 games, Columbus has allowed 4+ goals in 5 out of the last 7. And that's why I don't think it's available. But honestly, the amount of goals that the Avalanche have been scoring and that Columbus is giving up, I am more leaning towards here it is. I'm more leaning towards over 4.5 goals for Colorado to score 5 is -105. And I can see this being a weird game. Them winning 5-4, 6-4, something like that. Now, if you're taking the over 4.5 for Colorado, then you might as well dabble in the -2.5 range. I'm not going to. I do think Colorado scores a lot of goals tonight. I just think Columbus is giving up a ton right now. But I can absolutely see them covering the +1.5 number. I'm just a little bit worried with regards to how good Colorado's goaltending has been. But man, Columbus, dude, they're the breaker of hearts, man. They just find a way to cover and or win games against really good teams. It's just kind of what they do. So don't mind that bet at all. John, what about you? What do you see here?
Kind of similar. I think I'm leaning towards the Columbus puck line, mainly because the Blue Jackets are just a weird team, and it just feels like on paper this is a too good to be true type of situation for Colorado. So I don't have a lot of sound logic for picking this. I just have a feeling the Blue Jackets. I noticed the Blue Jackets just show up in random times, and I think this is just one of those times.
All right, moving on to Madison Square Garden, where the Pittsburgh Penguins are playing the New York Rangers. Rangers -198 on the money line at home. Pittsburgh +164 on the road. The over is 6 at -115. The under is -105, -1.5 on the Rangers puck line, +130. +1.5 on the Penguins puck line, -155. Andre, what do you see in this game from your boys in blue tonight?
Over all the way. Not even a debate. These teams met a couple weeks ago, March 16th, 7-4 game in Pittsburgh. That was a wild one, wacky one. It just feels like the Rangers a lot lately. Everything's over the total. 8 of their last 9 games have finished over the total. Oddly enough, the only one that didn't was against the Avalanche, which you wouldn't expect. But I mean, defense and then goaltending has been kind of shaky lately. They gave up 5 against Arizona on Saturday, 5 against the Flyers on Tuesday, 4 against the Jets, 4 against the Penguins, 6 against the Lightning, all within the past couple of weeks. Differences or the reason why they're winning is because the offense is consistently scoring like 5+ goals. They're clicking. The Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line is absolutely on fire. In particular, I've been betting them to score so much lately, and I've hit so many bets and parlays. Just Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, maybe throw in Adam Fox to get a point. So I really love doing that. I trust this Rangers team to score plenty against Pittsburgh again. So I'm definitely taking the over. I'm taking that -1.5 because I trust my boys. They're playing phenomenal. They're winning games like crazy lately. Obviously, we just talked about the Penguins blowing a 3-1 lead against the freaking Blue Jackets. They blew a 4-0 lead against the Avalanche recently too. They're not holding on to anything. I just don't see how this isn't a dominant Rangers win. And the Rangers are still playing for something because I think me and John talked about it pre-show a couple days ago. First in the East is very important because the difference between facing either the Lightning or the Maple Leafs versus facing some combination of Red Wings or Flyers or Capitals is a huge difference. So the Rangers want 2 points. Every 2 points they can get. They're kind of getting healthier, even though Trouba did not play well last game. I'm taking -1.5 at +130. I'm taking the over, and I'm probably going to take Rangers team goals as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that pre-show conversation because I agree 100%. Even as a Devils fan, like I think the number one seed in the East is going to be very vital because I would say it's like a 4-team race right now between New York, Carolina, Boston, and Florida. But honestly, like maybe I shouldn't say that for the Metropolitan, but like for Boston and Florida at least, like let's just say one of them get the 2 seed and the other one is second place. Both of them would have very difficult first round matchups. And to circle this back to the Rangers, I'm going to take the 1.5 as well for the reason you just said. I think the Rangers are properly motivated given the standings right now. And also, I think offensively, this is a great matchup for the Rangers. They're a much better scoring team overall, and the power play is nearly double the success rate of the Penguins. So I just don't think Pittsburgh matches up with the Rangers in general. And combine that with the extra motivation, I would definitely be comfortable taking the Rangers puck line here.
Yeah, I'm right there with both you guys with regards to the puck line, and I love that overplay, Andre. I think you're spot on. Really good point about how much they've covered over the last couple weeks. I'm gonna place that bet right when we're done. That's enough to convince me on taking the over as well. I mean, nothing really left to add. You guys both had some great points. I'll say this with regards to the Penguins, like how many games can these guys even be factors in anymore? Like their hearts are just getting broken every single game, every single day. If I'm Sidney Crosby, I'm just you know what I mean? Like when you're up 3-1, you're still like, yes, we all believe, and I like rightfully so, we all believe Pittsburgh is done, but like you are only 6 points back, right? Like they play 73 games. They have 9 games left. You know, it's not like 6 points is completely Philadelphia. Who knows what Philadelphia is doing right now? These guys, they can't stay consistent to save their lives. So if you're Philadelphia, or if you're Pittsburgh rather, like it's somewhat there still. But you're just losing heartbreakers every night, and I'm all about this. I love Rangers right there with you guys. -1.5. -1.5, and I'm taking that over as well. Love it. Moving on. Speaking of the Philadelphia Flyers, they are home against the New York Islanders. Philadelphia Flyers -118 at home, -102 are the Islanders on the road. Over 6 at -105. The under is -115. +1.5 for the Islanders is -258. -1.5 for the Flyers, +210. John, let's start with you, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
A game that Philadelphia needs desperately. You touched on this in the recap that Washington already passed them right now. So Philly, I think, needs every single point they can get. And this is an important game for the Islanders too, because they have 2 games in hand on the Flyers, and if they can get a little winning streak going, they might be able to catch them as well. Do I believe that's going to happen though? I'm skeptical. I think I'm going to take Philadelphia in this one. I think they match up well with the Islanders. Both of these teams are two of the lower scoring teams in the NHL. Both average less than 3 goals a game. But I trust Philly's defense and goaltending more than the Islanders. I don't think they're as consistent. So I think this is a friendly matchup for Philadelphia. And in my opinion, this is a game they have to have. So give me the Flyers money line here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Nothing really too much more to add. I'll say this. They played Chicago and Montreal the last 2 games. They got outscored 2-9 or 9-2. Like this is a game that they need to step up. I'm 100% with you. Philadelphia on the money line. Both these teams in the last 10, man. Philadelphia 3-5-2, Islanders 2-7-1. The last 10 games, the Islanders have scored 3+ goals 4 times. So I do think this is a good bounce back spot for the Flyers. It's been the Islanders. Remember, was it 2 weeks ago when they were right there? And I think they were even in the wild card spot for a split second there. And they've just fallen right off a cliff. And I think this is a great bounce back spot for the Flyers. But listen, scoring 2 goals and allowing 9 against Chicago and Montreal in back-to-back games, you got to bounce back here. I don't even care who you're playing. They could be playing Colorado for all I care. You got to bounce back and give your fans a game tonight. Andre, what about you, man? What do you see here?
I don't know if I see the bounce back happening. I just think they're out of gas. This team has been through a lot this year. Talking about the Flyers, they're gritty, they're tough, but at some point, the cracks just become too big to hold everything together, and I think that's starting to become apparent. Like you just said, Mark, 5 goals allowed against the Blackhawks, 4 goals allowed against the Canadians. They've allowed in total 19 goals in their last 4 during this 4-game losing streak. They only scored multiple goals once. That was when they got that OT point, which might be the reason they backdoored to the playoffs at this point. But the offense has struggled all year. The power play is non-existent. Now the defense, I would say the goaltending issues more so, with their top guy gone probably forever, starting to rear its head. Honestly, it might be who they are. I'm going to take the Islanders minus 102 here. They're not playing well either, but I feel like they have more in that locker room right now. I feel like, the Flyers are desperate. The Islanders need this game. John brought up a great point about the fact that they can't catch them and make a run. I don't think it's going to be pretty for either side, but I think the Islanders are going to pull this one out.
Well, it's a great point, too, because this is one of those games where from the Flyer side, you lose to Chicago and Montreal, you got to bounce back, or you just lost to Chicago and Montreal. Why wouldn't the Islanders beat you? This really could go. You could use the point that I made to go either way on that. 100%. This is also one of those games, if you love the Flyers, bet the money line. I don't know. We'll see if that ends up on my card. Moving on to Detroit and Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, the Red Wings are plus 160 on the road, minus 192 are the Lightning at home. The over is 6.5 at minus 110. The under is also minus 110. Red Wings plus 1.5, minus 155, and minus 1.5 for Tampa Bay is plus 130. I mean, this Red Wings team, what are we getting from this team on a nightly basis? It's just so hard to figure out over the last few weeks. The consistency of this team has just completely fallen off a cliff. They're 15, 19, and 3 on the road, 3-5-2 in their last 10 games. Over the last 4 games, they have been outscored 12-5, which is an awful trend to have going into a game against Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, the Lightning are 23-9-4 at home. Andre, you've talked about this all year. Tampa, a terrific home team. The Lightning are also 8-1-1 in their last 10 games, 3-game winning streak. In their last 11 games, they have 3+ goals in all 11 games. In 7 of those 11, 4+. So for a team who is being outscored 12-5, like I said, going into a barn where the Lightning, they've just been scoring a lot of goals lately, and I just think this is a tough spot for the Lightning, or for the Red Wings, rather. Now, from a betting perspective, obviously the money line's too expensive, and Vasilevsky coming off that surgery earlier in the year, it is hard for me to fully trust a Tampa Bay puck line here, but I do like the 60-minute line. You're paying a little bit of juice at -120, but I do like Tampa Bay here on the 60-minute line, -120. I also do like the over. I think we're looking like either way, whoever wins, we're looking at 4-3, 5-3, 5-4, maybe even 5-2 if things get out of hand. But I can 100% see this thing going over, and I like Tampa on the 60-minute money line. Andre, what about you? What do you see here?
I've been back and forth on this game for a bit, between that 60-minute line and the puck line, because, I mean, the Red Wings, they beat Tampa twice early in the year. These are different teams right now. Tampa deserves to be favored, and heavily favored as they are. Tampa went 9-1-1 in March. I don't think it was talked about enough how phenomenal they were start to finish last month. Only game they didn't get a point in was against the Flames, March 7th. Other than that, you have a win against the Panthers and the Rangers and the Golden Knights all in a row. I didn't say it in a row because I'm weird, but they won 3 in a row against really good teams. The Kings and the Bruins. This is a team that played tremendous hockey. They're home, like you said. Best power play in the league, 5th best PK, best offense overall. They're still dangerous 5-1-5. Kucherov, one of the premier scorers in the league. I don't see this Red Wings team, the way they've been playing lately, keeping up. 60-minute line, I feel like, is safer. But against a team that went 3-9-2 in March, against a team that had a negative 24 goal differential in March, against a team that, struggles to stop pucks. They can score. They haven't been lately. It's part of the struggles, but they're not going to slow down this Tampa offense tonight. I'm taking them -1.5. I'm running it to the bank.
John, what about you, man? What do you see here? You might have convinced me, Andre. We'll see what happens. What do you see here, John?
I think Andre convinced me because I'm glad he brought up how well Tampa's playing lately, because they're 8-1-1 in their last 10 games, and I find that extremely notable, considering like 2 weeks ago we were talking about Tampa and Detroit battling for position. Now they're not even in the same stratosphere, in my opinion. Like, Tampa's closer to your boys, Mark, than they are Detroit now. I think Tampa's definitely the better team. I think this is a good matchup for them as well, because Detroit, I think, relies on scoring, and this is the wrong team to be going against to rely on that, because Tampa can simply outscore you. They're one of the top 5 teams in the league in goals per game. I believe they're the number 1 power play unit in the NHL as well. So I think they'll hold up here. I understand the hesitancy to go with the puck line. I do think a 60-minute line is probably the safer play, but I think I trust Tampa to win by 2. I really do. So I'm going to take the puck line here.
I will say something I forgot to mention before. If you are, for whatever reason, you're watching this and you've been feeling Detroit and you're trying to find some angle for Detroit to come through and give you that big plus money victory as an underdog, Bob Duff, who is a legendary hockey writer, specifically with the Detroit Red Wings. He has also written a bunch of books about the game. He wrote an article over the weekend talking about how there's rumors circulating that if they miss the playoffs, Iserman and the gang will be looking for a new head coach. So with those rumors circulating around the team over the weekend, maybe that's an angle where they're smart enough, they play hard for their guy, and they get the job done, or they hate the guy, they just play worse. Who knows how that could go? But that's just an interesting tidbit that I heard over the weekend. All right, moving on to my guys. The new 60-goal scorer and the rest of the Maple Leafs are home for less of a home game than they had in Buffalo against the Florida Panthers. The Toronto Maple Leafs at home, plus 105. Home dogs against the Florida Panthers. Panthers minus 122. The over is 6.5 at plus 100. The under is minus 120. Minus 1.5 for the Florida puck line, plus 195. Plus 1.5 for the Leafs is minus 238. As far as the Maple Leafs go, big win against Buffalo on the weekend. I briefly mentioned this last week. Yeah, you should beat Buffalo, but those games in Buffalo are weird, man. It's a kind of mini rivalry. It's the closest NHL team to Toronto. Those games are always hard fought. They're always weird, but they ended up, it was a very kind of uneventful victory. 3-0 ho-hum. Nothing crazy to write home about. Samsonov has just been playing out of his mind since coming back from the mini sabbatical over the All-Star break. Really good stuff to see from him. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 9 out of the last 10 games, they have scored 3+ goals. 5 of the last 10, they have allowed 3+ goals. Florida Panthers, 25-9-3 on the road. Just a terrific road team are the Panthers. 4-5-1 in their last 10. Been a little bit shaky. I feel like this is a good spot. Florida's been a little up and down over the last couple weeks, and I feel like Toronto they've been a little up and down here and there as well, but I do feel like they have rounded back into form. Riley hasn't been playing. Edmondson hasn't been playing over the weekend. Marner is on long-term IR. He'll be back for the playoffs, maybe a few games before, but he won't be playing tonight. So there are some top guys out for the Leafs, but I do feel like a Florida Panther team who's been up and down over the last couple weeks. They're coming to Toronto. You have that big game on Saturday. You're at home, plus money. I feel like it's a good spot to take the Leafs plus money here, plus 105 on the money line. If you're talking yourself into the Florida Panthers, I don't hate it at all. I've said this many times. They might not be playing like the best team in the league right now, but I do feel like when Florida is playing their best, I do feel like they're the best team in the league. So I can understand you taking them, but I do feel like good Toronto Maple Leaf team. They're at home, plus money. I love it. I'll also say, not that this necessarily matters in the context of the game, but it is interesting. The Toronto Maple Leafs will be the next team to clinch a playoff spot if they win tonight. So go out, clinch your spot, get it done at home, plus 105. The Maple Leafs over Florida. John, we'll go to you, man. What do you see here?
I think I'm leaning towards Florida here. This is a tough one to pick. We're definitely two of the better teams in the NHL. I think it's an interesting clash because Toronto's a top 3 scoring team in the league, and Florida's the number 1 goaltending team in the NHL. So I view this as a something has to give type of matchup. But I tend to trust goaltending in these situations, and Florida has shown, outside of a weird loss to Boston, I think it was last week, that Florida typically steps up in these spots. I think they're just a team I trust a little more, and I think they're a little more well-rounded. I feel like they'll come up with a win here, but it's close. It'll be a close game.
You're such a hater, man. Andre, what do you have to say for yourself?
I think long term Florida is more well rounded. I think with the way they've
Agreed.
been playing lately, especially just giving up goals, so uncharacteristic for them. But it's consistently, it feels like 3 and 4 these past couple of weeks. That's why they've really struggled, lost 6 of their last 8. I see Toronto taking advantage of that. So I'm going to go with the plus money for the home team, the team that can't clinch a playoff spot. And the Maple Leafs, a team that hosted the Panthers already this season, won in a shootout. So it wasn't a dominant victory, but it was a win nonetheless. They held the Panthers, or not they held the Panthers. They lost to the Panthers 3-1 the first time they met, but that was in October. So, I mean, there's history there. We've seen Toronto succeed defensively and with goaltending against this Panthers team. I think that's what's important for me. And with the way the Panthers aren't stopping pucks right now, I can see 60 goal scorer Austin Matthews and company having a solid day in the office. I'm going to roll with the over for sure and the plus 105 for Toronto.
It's a great point by you again that I forgot to mention is Florida, 7 out of their last 10 games, they've scored 3+ goals, and 7 out of their last 10 games, they've allowed 3+ goals. So I'm right there with you with the over. And I'm just bugging you, John. I can see the Panthers winning tonight. Like I said, I think they're the best team in the league, but I just think it's a good spot for the Leafs. And maybe I'm just caught up in the Matthews hype, man. It's good vibes around here, which don't last very long. So if you know anything about Toronto sports and Toronto sports radio, everyone is stoked about Matthews. And if they lose tonight, then the sky is falling. It's just how it works over here. Moving on to Edmonton in St. Louis. Must win for the St. Louis Blues. As we talked about off the top of this segment, the St. Louis Blues have 82 points, 5 points behind the Los Angeles Kings, and the Kings have a game in hand. So it's a tough must win, but it's a must win nonetheless against the Edmonton Oilers. Plus 164 are the Blues at home. Minus 198 are the Oilers on the road. The over is 6.5 at plus 100. The under is minus 120. Minus 1.5 is plus 130 for the Oilers, and plus 1.5 for the Blues is plus 155. Andre, we'll start with you, man. What do you see here?
I think I'm going to roll with the Blues money line here. I don't. Well, for starters, they're at home. Let's get that out the way. This is one of those teams, again, where when they're at home, I think they deserve a little more credit, a little more leeway. I'm going to pretend like they didn't play the Sharks recently. That's not important to me. This Oilers team, though, they're playing well. Again, I should say, I mean, they haven't really had an extended slump. There's just, they lose two in a row. They win a couple. They'll lose, win a couple. They won 3 in a row. They've scored 3+ goals in 7 straight games. The offense is doing what the offense is supposed to. They held the Kings to 1 goal. They held the Ducks to 1 goal. My issue, I think, with this game is that the last time they were on the road, or when they had that 3-game road trip recently, they allowed 14 goals in those 3 games. 6 to the Maple Leafs, 5 to the Senators, 3 to the Jets. So I see the Blues keeping that alive, especially after getting shut out by somebody. I'm not going to say the team who it was. I think their offense bounces back. They score at least 3. It's a tight game. Oilers offense absolutely does its thing. It probably goes to overtime, but I think the Blues squeak it out. Just the way I see it. So I'm going to roll with the Blues money line in the over in this one. Might look at a 60-minute draw too, because I actually very strongly feel like this might go to, or this will go to overtime.
Yeah, I can see that happening. If you're interested, which I don't know why you would be, but I was typing in Blues in StatMuse, and I typed in Buse by accident, and Art Buse, baseball player in 1913, 1914, average of 217 over 54 at bats. So if you're looking for some random trivia, maybe some baseball trivia night, Art Buse comes up, you now know. Average of 217 over 2 seasons in the MLB, 1913 and 1914. So write that down. You may need it at a later time. As for the St. Louis Blues, yeah, tough night against the Sharks, as you just talked about, and how I talked about in a Bad Beat segment. Besides that, 5 goals against Calgary, 5 goals against Minnesota, 5 goals against Ottawa, 4 goals against Anaheim, 3 goals against Minnesota and the Kings, and 5 goals against Boston. That's their last 11 games, all wins. As you talked about, the Oilers, obviously a very good team. Not worried about the Oilers long term, but recently they've been a little bit shaky, a little bit sloppy. Yes, big win against the Ducks on the weekend, but the Oilers have been a little bit loose over the last couple weeks. And like we talked about, it's a must win for St. Louis. They have to win this game. What boggles my mind about St. Louis and what drives me crazy about this team, and it's why every time I bet anyone's props on this team, I second guess it as soon as I press place bet, is like, who shows up for this team consistently? Like, I find Kyrou, Thomas, like, they're good players, but I just don't know when they're going to show up. And that's the concern that I really have when it comes to betting the St. Louis Blues team, is I just don't know who is your guy. Who's the guy that you're going to look to take this game over, to score a big goal, to put pucks on the net? Like Jordan Kyrou, 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots, 1 shot. It's just kind of just disappears. And so it concerns me betting the St. Louis team, because I just don't know who you're trusting. Binnington's had a phenomenal year, real bounce back year from last year. I am going to ride with the Blues. I am too. I agree with you. Plus 164, good value. I think that they'll bounce back. I think they'll win tonight. Listen, you have an off chance to make it to the playoffs and you get shut out at home against the Sharks. What better team to get redemption at? Obviously, Edmonton's a difficult team to play, but to show your fans we're for real. We're going to beat Edmonton at home, bounce back, plus 164. I like it. If you want to parlay a big juice play with another play, I do like St. Louis plus 1.5. It's minus 155, so to bet it single is really expensive. But if you want to put that with a parlay, I really do like St. Louis plus 1.5, which would pair nicely with your draw take. So that's how I feel about this game. John, what about you, man? What do you got here?
Honestly, I'm torn. This is definitely one of the tougher games on the slate for me to pick today. I agree. St. Louis really needs to have this game, and this will be a huge test for them because I consider Edmonton one of the best teams in the NHL. Edmonton's a top 4 scoring team, which doesn't bode well for St. Louis because the Oilers average 3.61 goals per game, and the Blues average a mere 2.82. So we're talking about a large contrast here when it comes to scoring. With that said, I do think this is a winnable game for the Blues. Like, they tend to step up in these type of situations. But outside that one loss, they have been playing pretty well in their last 10. I mean, 7-2-1 is nothing to sneeze at. And I'm glad you guys touched on their home record compared to the road record, because I don't even think they're over 500 on the road, and they have 22 wins at home this year. So I do think it bodes well for the Blues that this is in their arena. I think if I would be staying away from any game on this slate, this would be it. But if I had to pick a side, I think I'd lean St. Louis. I think there is value there.
Absolutely love it. Moving on, 2 games left On the slate tonight, the Los Angeles Kings coming off a lifeless performance in Calgary, to say the least. That game was the doubleheader to the Leaf game on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday. I watched it, and boy, man, did the Kings look not even bad, just like meh. Like they were just there. It just didn't really look like they were a part of the game. A side note to that, they played Calgary, like I said. Calgary wins 4-2. When you watch Calgary, and I don't know how much Calgary Flames you guys have watched lately, but like they're a good team. Like how they're missing the playoffs, it's just there's such a conundrum, as we say, that team, man. Like you watch them, and yeah, they got rid of some good guys, but they got good players on that team. They play hard, they play well. Like I don't understand how that team isn't in the hunt for the playoffs. Obviously, besides trading away some of their best players, but even still, like they play really well, and it's weird watching that team play. Anyway, Los Angeles Kings plus 105 on the road in Winnipeg. Jets minus 125, a 6-game losing streak, as we talked about. The over is 5.5 at minus 102, and the under is 5.5, obviously, at minus 118. Plus 1.5 from the King side is minus 258, and minus 1.5 from the Jet side is plus 210. John, let's go to you first, man. What do you see here?
I don't like the way Winnipeg's playing right now. Well, you mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Like they can't seem to buy a win lately. I mean, 3-6-1 in their last 10, not great. I'm a little concerned about the way the Jets are playing. At one point, we were talking about them winning their division, but I think that's pretty much gone now, especially with Dallas winning 7 in a row. So I think I'm leaning towards the Kings money line here. I just don't. This is mostly a fade Winnipeg play. I don't think they've earned a lot of trust from me of late. I guess you can argue they might be due for one, but the Kings have also lost their last 2 games as well, so they'll also be looking to bounce back here. And I think one of the better goaltending teams in the league can actually 2 of them. Sorry, like both of these teams have elite levels of goaltending, number 2 and 3 in the league in goals allowed. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out. The under might be worth a look with that said, but I think I'm leaning towards the Kings money line.
What about you, Andre? What do you see here?
Definitely taking that under. Honestly, don't really care what it was pregame. It's just when you get 2 teams like this, second and third in goals allowed this season, you just kind of got to roll with it. And I understand that the first 2 meetings, October and December, 5-1 win by the Kings and then 5-2 win by the Jets. I'm not buying it a third time. This has to be the classic, like 2-1, 3-1, whatever game between these teams that we've been missing all season. I'm ready for it. It's going to happen tonight. So that's just first off. Second, these Jets are struggling. It's not a secret. The Kings, they still have a better record on the road. So you would trust them in the spot. You would think. They did go to Winnipeg and win earlier this season. That 5-1 win. This Jets losing streak, can't last forever. The way they're giving up goals, that's not who they are. That's not going to last forever. This is the game. There are stakes. They need to right the ship. It's going to happen tonight. I'm taking the Jets minus 125. I might take the Jets 60-minute line. It has to be this one. It's going to be this one.
Yeah, so both of you make excellent points, and I can easily talk myself into backing both perspectives here. For me, though, and John, you almost got me, but I'm going all the way in on this. I'm taking Jets minus 1.5 at plus 210. I love that. Obviously, plus 210 is incredible value, and the books are telling you the percentage of this happening is not very high. However, watching these teams all year long. I watch both these teams. I watch hockey every night, and I'm telling you, to the viewers, I know you guys do as well. I'm just saying, if there's like both these teams, like you said, John, both these teams need a bounce back. Now the Kings are 6-4 in their last 10 games, losing to Calgary on the road, losing to Edmonton on the road. You're at the back end of a road trip in Winnipeg. You beat Vancouver, you beat Tampa Bay, you beat Minnesota. Some good teams sprinkled in there. But the Jets have lost, like we've all said here, 6 in a row, with losses to Ottawa, Washington, the Islanders, and the Devils sprinkled in there. And I just think the Jets, if there's one team after a tough 2-game stretch for the Kings, tough 6-game stretch for the Jets, if I have to pick which team do I believe in the most if they're playing at their best, it's the Jets without a doubt. And so for me, who do I bet on to bounce back the most? And I think it's the Jets, man. The Kings story as old as time for them. I know that technically the Jets are worse than them overall when it comes to goals per game. But the Kings, like, their goals are so sparing throughout the last 3-4 months. And I just think the Jets, they bounce back, and they bounce back huge tonight. I love it. -1.5. They're way, way too good to be going on a stretch like this. And I think they snap out of it. The highest goal scorer for the Jets over the last 5 games, Mason Appleton, with 2 goals. Now, no disrespect to Mr. Appleton, but you don't even have to know anything about this team. And when you say that Mason Appleton is the highest, it sounds like a name that shouldn't be your leader in goals. You know what I mean? Like Appleton, like it like, you know, Kyle Connor. That's a hockey name. They need their big boys to step up tonight. Connor, Scheifele, Toffoli needs to get rolling here. He's been with this team for a while. I think the Jets bounce back in a big way, and I'm taking them -1.5. For that reason, I am staying away from the total. I agree that the under seems like a very, very logical play, and I don't hate it. Just with the context of this game, I really do think that the Jets and win big. I'm taking -1.5 here. They just need to snap out of it, man. Enough is enough. And let's put your foot down and kill this Kings team who has not had a successful road trip. Moving on to the last game of the night. The San Jose Sharks, the aforementioned San Jose Sharks, home against the Seattle Kraken. Seems like a pretty tough way to end your hockey viewing night when the Oilers play at 9:10 and then and the Jets play at 9:10 as well, and then you gotta wait till 10:40 for the next game, and it's the Sharks. It's like the third period's wrapping up and you got one game to watch, and it's Seattle and it's the Sharks. But hey, we get what we get. +185 are the Sharks at home. -225 are the Kraken on the road. And maybe this just speaks to how bad the Sharks are, because the Kraken to be -225 favorited on the road against anybody seems crazy extreme. But again, maybe that just speaks to the Sharks. The over is 5.5 at -120. The under is +100. Kraken -1.5 is +114. +1.5 for the Sharks is -135. And again, the money line -225 are the Kraken and +185 are the Sharks. Andre, we'll go to you, man. What do you see here?
I mean, it's the Sharks team fresh off a 4-0 win on the road.
Yeah.
And now they're in or not in Seattle. They're home against Seattle, a team that just got shut out to end their own homestand. This Kraken team, very, very inconsistent, especially offensively. And for a lot of March, it was down, down, down. We've seen teams go into the tank and get lost, not know how to score, lose to the Sharks, including this Kraken team on January 30th when they lost 2-0 in San Jose. I'm taking that Sharks money line and the under.
Absolutely love it. John, what about you, man? What do you see here?
I'm on both as well. The baby Sharks, I think, are going to strike tonight. This is a good matchup for it to happen. Love the under, too, considering these are two of the four lowest scoring teams in the NHL. And I just feel like we were talking about the Kings Jets being a grind. I feel like this is that degenerate 2-1 game that's going to be on at midnight or 1 a.m., something like that. Uh, yeah, so and this is just the type of game the Sharks win. I think this is a pretty winnable opponent considering neither team scores a lot. And when the Sharks outside that shutout Andre mentioned, most of the time I notice when the Sharks win this year, it's like usually very low scoring game. So I think if they can, and Seattle's the right type of opponent for that type of matchup for the Sharks. Uh, I think the Sharks money line and the under is the way to go.
I gotta say, where have I been? The Sharks power play is a sneaky 19th best in the National Hockey League. They're cooking. I feel like they've been like bottom 20s all year long, and they're 19th right now. Look at that. Power play is hot in San Jose. Yeah, I don't know. I do think the under, like you said, John, if you're looking for a nice degenerate play at midnight, you're rounding off your night, and you want some hockey to get some action on, I do think the under is a good play. Plus 100 is really good value for two teams who can't score. So I'm right there with you guys. That's pretty much all I got from this one. There's not too much to kind of lean on. Yeah, I mean, Kraken 29th in the league at 2.6 goals a game. 2.22 is good for 31st in the league for the Sharks. So I'm right there with you guys. I love that under at plus 100. And other than that, there's nothing really else that I'm going to go on. If you want to go Sharks plus 185 at home, I can't argue against it. But I'll just take the under, and that is good enough for me. All right, moving on to our best bets, brought to you by the one and only First Round Collectibles. With our promo code Sports Addict, you get 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing, whatever. It doesn't matter. They have it at firstroundcollectibles.com. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off. And with our promo code, you get 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today and find your heroes. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com, using promo code SportsAddict for 10% off sale and regular priced items. FirstRoundCollectibles.com, sports cards for sports fans. Andre, before you first, man, what is your best bet in the National Hockey League tonight?
I'm going to go to a division matchup. I'm going to go to a 7 o'clock game. It's not my Rangers, though. It's the Lightning taking on the Red Wings. I have so much confidence in this Lightning team right now, especially at home. I have very little confidence in this Red Wings team right now, regardless of the venue. Maybe the threat of firing the coach will awaken something, but tonight's not going to be the night we find out. Give me the Lightning minus 1.5.
Absolutely love it. John, what about you, man? What do you got?
Nice way to start this, because that was actually my second choice compared to what I'm about to pick here. So I like this already. My best bet is the game we just talked about, the degenerate play of the night. I'm going to go with Sharks Kraken under. Like I said before, two of the four lowest scoring teams in the NHL going at it. And I just have a feeling this is going to be one of those 2-1 type games. Even if the Sharks don't come up with it, I just can't see many goals being scored between these two teams, especially because the Kraken tend to have decent goaltending as well. So Sharks, Kraken under, that's my best bet.
You love starting the week off with a bang, eh? A little Sharks Kraken best bet. Absolutely love it. Yeah, for my best bet, I'm gonna keep this nice and simple. It feels a little bit risky just with the way that they've been playing the last couple of weeks. This Jets team is just so much better than this Kings team. Watching them both all year long, I like this Jets team way more than the Kings team, and they gotta step up tonight, and they gotta get a win. This team is too good to lose 7 in a row, let alone the 6 that they've already lost. I'm going with the Jets. I'll pick the money line for the best bet, -125. I have made my case. I really do like this puck line for the Jets. I really do. But to keep it a little bit safe, to get to cash that best bet parlay, I'll keep it at -125 with an honorable mention to that puck line too, because I really do think they're going to win big tonight. But give me the Winnipeg Jets at -125 as my best bet.
Perfect. So we're starting off tonight with Tampa puck line at +130 at home. Then 9 o'clock, we're taking the Jets to take down the Kings at home. Just the money line at -125. And then last but not least, actually might be least tonight, the under in Kraken versus Sharks under 5.5 at +100. The odds for that parlay +728, boys.
Absolutely love it. Let's start this week off with a bang. Shout out First Round Collectibles. Use our promo code SportsAddict for 10% off. Shout out to Total Apex Sports. We love you guys. Thank you for having us. Keep an eye out. Lots of baseball talks and basketball talk with your boy Andre throughout the day. So check out Total Apex Sports. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. Good luck on your bets, and we'll see you tomorrow.